Hey guys, Mike here with EBR, and this is the Lectric XP Trike. It's an electric tricycle that has a party trick because this one can fold. That's right, this footprint here can go to a smaller overall size, which is going to be really nice for those of you who travel with your e-bikes or you just have tighter storage spaces. This is a really cool feature on something like an electric trike. Man, now maybe you're somebody who has stability concerns and you're interested in electric tricycles, or maybe you're just curious about these. So stick around, I'm gonna put it through its paces and we'll see if the Lectric XP Trike earns a spot in your garage. All right guys, so the XP Trike has a price at $14.99, which is relatively on the lower side when it comes to electric trikes these days. And that kind of just continues with Lectric's overall theme of just providing all the bike you need, nothing you don't, and generally at a pretty good price. Now, this is UL 2849 and 2271 certified, and it's class 2. Now that means we do have throttle and pedal assist, but it's capped at 14 miles an hour, but that's by design. Generally speaking, trikes are just not very safe at really high speeds, and they don't want people cornering 20 plus miles an hour. So they just put that on there just to keep the bike, a three-wheeled platform, stable and just makes it more safe in general. Now, in terms of colors and sizing, this is the only color. It's the graphite silver they have, and it fits what they say is 4'10" up to 6'4". Now, in full disclosure, I'm 5'11", and when I'm riding this, my knees get a little close to the handlebar, but you also have telescoping room to bring that up. But that will also increase the reach, just something to keep in mind. Now, some geo numbers for this. It's about 13.8 inches at the standover height. You have about 12 inches of adjustability in the seat post, a 19-inch reach, and you have a 43-inch wheelbase. Now, the max payload on this is 415 pounds, and in this rear cargo rack, you can hold 75 of that out of the 415 total. Now, when it comes to wheels, they have a 20-inch alloy wheel with Schrader valves, and they wrapped it in a 20 by 2.6-inch tire that has some light tread and a reflective strip on the side. Now, when it comes to things like extras and included items, it does come with 3 fenders. All of them are alloy and color matched to the bike itself. It's a rigid fork up front. The basket area, the cargo baskets, are currently a free accessory when you make a purchase. I don't know how long that lasts, so when you look or when you're watching this, it may still be free or it may just be an add-on item. You will also get a front cargo basket right now, and the suspension seat post and backrest supported seat. Now, outside of those front and rear cargo baskets, you also have 3 mounting points on the down tube and another 2 on the seat tube. So you've got 5 total bosses to work with for things like water bottle cages or whatever accessories you want to attach. Now, when it comes to lighting, it does come with front and rear lighting. The rear tail lights also act as brake lights, and they're built into the alloy fenders. And normally there would be a headlight up front that does come with the bike, but ours is just off for where we had it stored. Now, in terms of brightness, the headlight that it comes with right now is 850 lux. It's very bright, kind of a big moto style with really, really good visibility in both daylight and in low light. So in terms of power delivery and battery setup, so we've got a 500 watt rear hub motor, and a little bit different on a trike, as you would guess, because it's centrally mounted below the seat, which gives it a good center of, like, nice low center of gravity. But then it runs a sprocket to a chain that drives power to both rear wheels at the same time, just giving you a nice get up and go from the motor. Now, the motor's 500 watts nominally, but it can peak it up to 1,092 watts, and it can pump out 65 Newton meters of torque. All in all, for a trike that's going to be no more than 14 miles an hour, it's a really good balance of capability without being too speedy, which you're not going to want on this, but still having the power and torque to get you up hills or have a load in the back and not really bog you down. Now, this does have a cadence sensor, which normally when you pedal, that will activate the sensor to kick on the motor. But Lectric does something a little bit unique. They take their cadence sensors and use their PWR programming, which essentially is just some clever programming that will make the cadence sensor feel a bit more natural and dynamic, like a torque sensor would, a bit more of a premium feel while still using the same hardware as a cadence sensor. Now, in terms of battery power, we do have a 48 volt battery here that has 13 amp hours, giving us a total of 624 watt hours to work with. And this battery is UL 2271 certified. Now, this can be locked in place and removed for storage or for charging off the bike. You simply just turn the key and it releases it from here and you pull it straight out. It's very straightforward and very easy to use, which I always appreciate. Now, they say this will last up to 50 miles of range. Now, I did some testing when I got this here, and on minimum pedal assist, the lowest PAS level, I was able to get just over 50 miles, so kind of meeting that expectation and slightly exceeding it. Now, when I bumped it up to full PAS or PAS level 5, I still got 30 miles on a single charge. So all in all, I think the power delivery of the battery and motor combo do live up to the expectations. All right, so in terms of componentry on the XP Trike, we do have a single speed setup. So no drivetrain, rear derailleur where you're shifting through gears. Instead, it's a single fixed speed with a 16-tooth cog in the rear that's mated to a 36-tooth chainring up front. Now, this combination of gearing is good for just everyday pedaling, mostly along flat terrain. Some slight elevation changes aren't going to be a problem either. But should you get into some technically steeper inclines or declines, well, basically inclines, that is when having e-power, the throttle, the pedal assist really will come into play. And I think it was a good option to go with a single speed drivetrain, because this is not a bike that's going to be doing technical ascents and descents and working through gears and things like that. It's generally just going to be taking the path to the store, to the park, things like that. And that's where this setup really shines. Now, in terms of the rest of that drivetrain, we have a alloy chain guard up here. We have 170mm alloy cranks mated to flat alloy pedals. Now, generally, Lectric does include quick release pedals. On this one, they included just regular flat alloys, which still have reflective strips on them and some traction studs as well. Now, when it comes to braking, it's a hydraulic disc brake setup. Up front, we have a single rotor on the front wheel with a 2-piston caliper, and in the rear, we have the same setup, a single rotor with 2-piston caliper, but it's centrally mounted on the rear axle. So when you apply that braking pressure to the rear rotor, you're going to get braking power that essentially stops both tires at the same time through that rear axle. Now, the brakes are unbranded, so I can't speak to longevity or servicing, but they've been performing flawlessly since I've had the bike. And generally speaking these days, 2-piston caliper hydraulic disc brakes are becoming fairly run-of-the-mill, common practice, and they've run good, and I wouldn't have any concerns about buying a bike with these unbranded rotors. All right, now moving up to the saddle. So this is another area that we've got some things to talk about. So the standard setup on this bike is a standard seat post that has 12 inches of adjustability, but Lectric, in true Lectric fashion, always throws in a lot of just free accessories with each bike. And in this case, it came with the cargo baskets, like I said, including the front one and that headlight we don't have on right now, but also a suspension seat post and a back supported seat. Now, for some of you, that's going to be a really nice welcome change, having that back support on your bike, and others may not want that. And the good news is you simply can use the regular seat that it comes with as well. You're not stuck with this or the regular seat. You kind of have options and flexibility. I will say the suspension seat post is really nice to have, because on 2 wheels, if you do hit some bumps, it just does a good job of soaking up those absorptions for you, rather than your spine or your lower back taking that, taking that hit. Now, this is a rigid frame, so we have no suspension on the front. We usually have a front suspension fork to show you, but with the suspension seat post, I think it's all just fairly covered. Now, starting on the cockpit area here in the stem, it is telescoping, so you can kind of raise and lower that to fit it better for you. And it also folds for the folding aspect of the bike, which we'll get into in just a second. Now, the cable management here is going to be a single cable wrap that has all the little cables coming off the cockpit, and they run down to a single point in the frame where they go on the rest of their journey. Now, the cockpit itself is going to be a BMX style handlebar. It's about 25 inches long, and it's an alloy handlebar. On both sides, you have a you have ergonomic rubber grips. You have a twist throttle on this right side instead of the normal push throttle we see more often. And on both ends, you've got your hydraulic disc brake levers. Now, on this left side, we also have the PAS control buttons that work on the Lectric display. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at the display now and just kind of show you some of those features. All right, guys, so this is the home screen on the display. Now, going into the display, I've got some quick good news and bad news. The good news is this is not the display you'll be getting when you buy the bike. They now offer a full color display, which looks a lot higher contrast and just an overall more premium look. The bad news is I don't have it for this test model I was sent, but it's similar to this, and I'll go through what this display does have. Up top here is going to be the energy bar, which is just basically a 10-bar indicator of the battery life remaining. Here in the center is your speed, which you can change between kilometers or miles per hour, depending on what you want your units to be. Right here is your PAS indicator, which you can control with the buttons 1 through 5. And over on the right is a box for when you turn the headlight on by holding the plus button. That will tell you your headlight is on, and to turn it off, you just hold the plus button again. Now down below is the odometer. So right now the bike has 167 miles on it. But if you want to toggle through some other data screens, you just tap the power button and that will take you to the trip meter, the voltage, the current, and the time. And one more takes you back to the odometer. Now there is an ability to go into advanced settings to tweak things like units of measurements or speed controls, but just know that these displays have basically menus in them that are not understandable unless you have the manual with you. So if you need to tweak any advanced settings, I'll just show you how to do it and get out of it. But to actually play with those settings, just have your manual ready. Otherwise, they won't make a lot of sense. Now to get into advanced settings, you hold plus and minus. And that takes us to the advanced settings screens, which allow us to toggle through certain things. But again, it's not something I want to play with without the manual present, but that is how you access it. And to get out of this, you just hold plus and minus again, and you'll be taken back to your home screen. Now, Lectric does not have an app for this bike, so that really does wrap up everything you'll need as far as display and controls on the XP Trike. All right, now when you do want to fold up this trike, it's actually very straightforward and pretty simple. All you're gonna do is go to fold down the stem by releasing the quick release attachment on it, and that will allow the handlebar to fold down to the side. Then you simply pull the latch in the center and then bring the front wheel around. And really that wraps it up. It doesn't fold up any smaller than this, and it just makes it getting it into a tighter spot a little bit easier. Now to put it back, you'll simply just do the reverse that we just did. So I'll bring the wheel around front first, lock that in place, pull up the stem, lock that in place, and you're good to go. So pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and having something this size fold up smaller is just cool in general. All right, guys, we're out here on the XP Trike, and I figured I'd just take you for a ride, talk about how it feels, acceleration, braking, comfort, things like that. So first things first, the fit. So I'm 5'11", and I feel like the bike fits me really well. Now, if I was super tall, maybe 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", my knees would start to bump into these handlebars a little bit. Now, you can adjust them and raise them up, which does give me more room, but I think if you're really tall, it would just be a little bit of a problem. Other than that, I think the fit is great. It's super comfortable. You don't have any awkward body position, putting pressure on your back. You're not leaning forward. You're just like sitting almost like at a dinner table chair. It's upright, it's relaxed. Your hands just rest right out in front of you. Let's see how long it takes this to get up to speed, and we'll kind of feel the motor out and see how it does. So I'm going to turn around so I have a clear path, and then we will see how it accelerates. So pretty good acceleration right off the start. We're already at 10, 13, and it's starting to dial itself back a little bit for that max speed around 14. Looks like I'm showing low 13s right here. So yeah, about 13 and a half out of the 14 mile an hour max, which makes sense. I will say after about 12 miles an hour, the pedaling doesn't seem to have a lot of resistance, so it's going to be pedalable, if that's a word, under, 10, 11, 12 miles an hour, because once I start getting over that, my feet start going pretty quick, although I've still got resistance here at 12. Oh no, it's actually geared well. I've got resistance all the way through, although I'm pedaling a little bit fast. It's not super awkward. Let's try the brakes. 3, 2, 1. I mean, yeah, they stop great. I really like that centrally mounted rotor that gets braking power to both tires, and the motor for that fact. The throttle on here is a twist throttle, so kind of like a motorcycle style here on my right hand. And I did put my speedometer on my phone up just in case you guys couldn't see what I've got going on my speed. It seems to handle everything really well. I don't see any need for a suspension fork. The bike really has no trouble getting around. Let's go up this little incline and see how it does. So one thing, if you notice, I did slow down to about 7 miles an hour for that turn because it was a 90-degree turn. And that speed on a trike, that can be tipping speeds over, you know, about 10 miles an hour. But it's really cruising around, no problem at all. This would be awesome if you have any kind of mobility issues or just balance issues, any issues with your extremities, and you want something with a comfortable sitting position, but still want to be able to get out there. And in this case, back out there on 3 wheels. It's really a solid option for that. And then you got that huge cargo area in the back. You could groceries, pets, grandkids, whatever you want. It's just a versatile little e-bike that I think a lot of people who, for whatever reason, aren't looking for a 2-wheeled bike, this is going to fit and fill, you know, a good gap of the market who's looking for something like this. To be frank, I usually just waddle around on this thing. Also, it folds, so you're able to give it a smaller footprint, tuck it away smaller places, pack it up, put it in the back of the truck, take it with your RV, whatever you're doing. Just handles it all really well. The braking and power seems good. The tires are nice and quiet on the road. And even with no suspension, we've got a big plush seat and the fairly high volume tires, so you just still get a pretty cushy ride altogether. And so we've been going up a hill that's got a, I don't know, probably a 4 or 5% grade, and it was able to hold speed, which is really cool. So torque and power, I feel, is really sufficient just for the trike body that it is. And the style of riding you're expected to do on a trike versus something that's more, you know, performance oriented or speed driven. This is just to get you around comfortably and safely, and I think it does a really good job at that. But let's go back and kind of close this out. All right, guys, let's take a closer look at the XP Trike, more of a, not from a review standpoint, but more of a build quality and some like a maintenance perspective. These are the things you're going to encounter that we liked during the assembly process that we think were good additions and good choices from a build quality standpoint. And then some things that are standout features or need improvement when it comes to like maintenance perspectives, things that could get in the way or things that help you in terms of maintenance. So first off, I want to just thank Feedback Sports. They supplied us with some of their Pro HD racks. These are really versatile racks, lightweight, aluminum, fold up small, but they are super versatile in how they're able to carry even the biggest and most awkwardly shaped e-bikes like we have here. These do a really good job, and everything's very stable. You can still work on it. It's not really a big issue. If you like tweaking on your bikes and want to check these out, I'll put a link down in the description. So I'm just going to kick it off with a few things that stood out as just uniquely cool to this bike from a build perspective and a maintenance perspective. So first off, we have a bolted on axle up front. I really don't like saying like a quick release. Those are very narrow rods. They don't create a good contact point. They're secure, they're on a lot of bikes, but they don't really hold a beefed up support like you want with like a through axle, or in this case, a bolt-on axle. Either way, this just creates a good solid connection point for the wheel to frame. Now, on top of that, this being like an open design like this, it's not like a typical e-bike where you have a big down tube and everything is stuffed inside for aesthetics. And then if you need to change a controller or work on the internals, the cable management, you have a short and a wire, you're fishing everything out and trying to shove it back in. This is all easily accessible right here. You've got your crankset, your battery, your motor, the rotor, and then a chain going from the crankset to the motor, and on the other side of the motor, a chain going from the motor to the rear axle. And that really is everything you can access right there without any major headaches or taking a bunch of things out and trying to shove them back in neatly. This just makes life a lot easier if you have any kind of basic maintenance needs, repairs, or replacements of parts. Also, one final thing on this one that was really cool. Normally on e-bikes, any tire you change, especially the rear tires, are usually hub motors on e-bikes, and it's kind of a challenge. You've got a hub motor cable you got to disconnect, you've got a bolt axle you've got to remove, and it's just a heavy, awkward thing to work with if you get a flat tire. This, because it's a trike design, you have 2 wheels on the exterior, and all you need to do is take one of your tools here, pop it in there, loosen it up, and you can remove the tire without dealing with the hub motor itself or any of that weight and cable management. It just gets a whole lot easier by this design, and it just makes life that much simpler should you have to change a flat or a tire. Now, in terms of things that I would fix or change on this in future releases, there's just a couple small things. One is, you guys probably know by now, we're not huge fans of metal fenders. While they may paint up pretty, they are kind of a headache to deal with. You might get rust on them over time if you bump into them. A plastic one, you bump into something, it'll just pop back out. A metal one, you bump into something, it's probably gonna leave a permanent bend in it or dent. Just kind of a headache to deal with. I just rather see polymer or composite or plastic fenders. It's just a lot easier to work with. Let me grab my notes. I got a couple other things from when I built this. Oh, so this has grips on it. The grips feel fine, they're ergonomic grips, but they're not lock-on grips and they're not secured in place. So as you can see right here, just with a twist of my hand, I can just lift that up, pull it off. It's not a real big deal in terms of how it affects the bike and how it rides, but it's kind of a pain. You can feel the grips sliding around while you ride the bike. I just rather see a nice set of lock-on grips that aren't going to go anywhere. It's not a huge expense to the brand, and it just makes your life just that much easier when you're riding the bike. It's not something you got to think about, whereas now you kind of feel that grip rolling around as you're riding the bike. Oh, and then the final thing on here was, this is not really a issue of something they should fix. It's something for you guys to be more aware of at home as you own the bike. When you open up these hinges and you look inside, you can see here the cables basically from the front end controls going down to the controller for the bike. It's pretty typical for a trike design and a folding e-bike design in general. There's just something to be aware of, and that this has a nice single piece of cable wrap around it to hold all them together. But over time, these can crack, these can break, they just get older, right? And those wires can start to become exposed, and it's easier than you think to get one of these kinked, or basically the folding mechanism can sometimes bite into the wires and create a short or create a problem. So if you have an electrical issue with your bike, one of the first places I would check on a folding e-bike would be all your connection points, all the quick release connection points, but then the folding mechanism itself can sometimes take a bite into one of your wires. Just something, food for thought for you guys at home to keep in mind. Aside from that, everything was really pretty straightforward. It's kind of a simple design, but I think that lends to just how practical and easy it was to work on and build. But all in all, that's really all I got for the XP Trike. All right, guys, so that wraps up the Lectric XP Trike. It's got folding capability. It's a very stable platform for those of you concerned about maybe stability or balance, or you just haven't been on a bike in a long time and you want an easy way to get back into it. This is just gonna check a lot of boxes for a lot of folks. Plus, it's got the ability to fold up to a smaller footprint, which is gonna make it great for those of you who travel or are tight on storage. And all in all, this is a really just well done e-bike that comes in at just $14.99. Now, if I missed anything or you have questions about this model, drop them down below. I'll personally reply to everybody in the comments. And if you haven't already, consider liking and subscribing to our channel because we drop new reviews all the time. And until the next review comes out, I'll see you guys out on the trail.